Okay.
Can we go now?
Yes.
Excellent. Let's pray. Gracious and loving God, we give you thanks for the gift of your word, for the privilege to come together, and for the chance to dialogue and learn from your word. Help us during this time, O God, that the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts together will be acceptable in your sight. For you are our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. So we're in this series. We have been talking about becoming all God created us to be. We talked about how we were created to worship, how we were created to learn, how we were created to pray. And today, I want to talk about being created to serve. Serving is one of those tricky topics in church, especially if you're kind of new like me. I have to start with a question, because I don't know. How many of you have been on a mission trip? Or you've gone somewhere and served other people? Handful. Okay, that's fine, that's great. The pressure's going to be on you because I'm going to ask a couple of questions. And of course, I've got the answer if you're not willing to give it. No pressure, right? So, when you go to serve other people, just think about when you're leaving, when you're on your way. What is it you're excited about? I know that's a little vague, but let's see what we get. Yeah, Brian.
Anticipation.
Anticipation of just the whole experience, perhaps.
Well, in my situation, I was going to help people who had been in a flood and rebuild their homes.
Okay. So you're anticipating what a difference you're going to make.
Where I'm going to be or what I'm going to be tearing apart or whatever.
Exactly. I've got a lovely scar right about here after Hurricane Katrina from just that type of service. Unfortunately, it's really hard to see right now. Boy, I can feel it when I poke right here. Isn't that funny? Some others. Well, here, I'll give the answer I'm looking for. It'll save us some time. Because it's snowing harder. No pressure on me. When we go to serve, I find myself, and I've been on several of these, anticipating what a colossal difference I'm going to make in these people's lives. You know, even if I'm rebuilding a house, if it's just that handful of people, I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to minister to them in incredible ways. And I have never failed to get the answer I'm looking for on this next question, and I've asked it many times, so I'm going to risk it yet again. Who ends up receiving the most ministry when you go on a mission trip? You. It never fails. I go expecting to transform lives, to represent the love of Christ, to make people feel something in their spirit that they haven't felt or are struggling to feel, and they never fail to turn it around on them. Here I think I'm going to be a blessing, and they end up such a blessing to me. My very first mission or service experience, I was in junior high, and our youth group adopted a home in our community. We didn't even have to really go anywhere. We gave up a string of Saturday mornings, and we went to this home in the inner city, and we made repairs, and we scraped, and we scraped, and we scraped, and we scraped, and we painted, and we fixed up the exterior. We worked in the yard. We spruced up the house significantly. And towards the end of our work time, we found out that the homeowner, an elderly woman, her water heater went out. And we agonized and prayed. What can we do for her? We've spent all the money we raised. And it was literally time to dedicate our work. The woman came to our church and wanted to make an offering. She had been saving money every week that she was anticipating our arrivals to make a gift to the church so that we could bless somebody with it. The gift she made was exactly the price of a water heater. What do? If we take her gift and turn it right back around and give it back to her, is it still a blessing? If we say, no, we can't take that, you need it, we rob her of the fact that she felt a need to give. My childhood pastor looked at the situation and said, I know just where this special gift you've given is going to go. We have a fund that we use to help people who have a significant need. And someone has come in recently with a need that your gift is going to match perfectly. And we're going to take care of that. There's a family that just had their water shut off. We're going to get it turned back on. Oh, and by the way, we received another gift last week designated for someone who needs a water heater. Would you mind if we take care of you too? Brilliant, quick thinking to not turn her gift into coming back to her, but to see mutual blessings. Never forgot that moment. And she stood up and said the kind of prayer of blessing on our church that you can only imagine. Here, we thought we were serving her, and when she prayed over us as a church that day, our church was transformed. A little later in life, we agreed to go do a service project that I still can't figure out how we were going to do. I've just given away the end of the story. Because there was this family living in a house that apparently the house was acceptable, but it had a dirt floor. And my dear friend Filiberto Pereira, some of you may have heard of Filiberto, he does ministry in South Texas and northern Mexico, said, we want you to put a floor in. All right. God, we don't know how we're going to do this, but we're game. Let's give it a shot. Stay with me. 3 weeks before we were to leave, that family's house was robbed. And in the Colinas of South Texas, when you commit a burglary like that, it was common practice amongst the thieves to then burn down the house and destroy the evidence. So we went from figure out how to put a floor in an existing structure to, oh my goodness, now we've got to raise a lot more money, but we're going to have to build a whole house. Again, I will never forget the pastor. I was the youth minister at that church at the time. The pastor that said, I've been praying for how in the heck we were going to do this. And ironically, the job that we agreed to just got a lot easier. Because if you put down a foundation and a floor first, building a house on top of it is a lot easier than trying to squeeze in concrete under an existing house and not destroy everything. So we went to our network. We put out a plea, told the story. Raised enough money not only to build the house, but furnish it. Because when we go to serve, when our hearts are in the right place and our desire to serve is there, God is so good to us. We end up receiving the blessing that we sought to be. You've heard the old easy phrase, it's better to give than receive. We throw that out about presents more often than not. Usually when someone doesn't have a present for us. It's okay, it's more blessing to give than receive. And we smile. almost lovingly. It's true when we serve. When we give of ourselves, when we give of the message of Christ's love in action to other people, amazing things turn back on us. We were created for this. It's a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to stick with it. I really wrestled with whether or not to use this. When we serve others, our hearts really do go through a Grinch transformation.
Not big enough.
Excuse me.
You got it.
When we serve others, our lives are forever changed. I promise you, the handful of people that raised their hands that said they'd been on a mission trip, if you engage them in a conversation, you better give yourself at least a half an hour, because they have incredible stories to tell. I've seen it over and over again. I could sit around and tell mission trip stories for, I could keep you here till the snow stops. Not going to do that to you. There's not enough battery.
I'm good now.
Oh, we're good now. Okay.
Let's change batteries.
New battery, we're good. No, I'm not going to do that to you. What I am going to say to you is God created us not to be selfish. God created us to experience love by giving love away. We were created to serve others. In the Bible story today, I find it fascinating. I will continue to find it fascinating that Jesus comes into the home of Simon and Andrew, and it says Simon's mother-in-law is sick with a fever, and he heals her, and she immediately gets up and serves them. Now, in the context of the culture, what we have been led to believe, what we instinctively probably all believe, is she made some cakes and got them some beverages, right? The Bible doesn't say that. It says she serves them. But what does it mean? Could it be that by serving them, she might have cared for them in some way, but she also might have prayed for them? Would that be serving them? She could have made a little food for them to eat. Or she could have washed their feet. She could have fixed their clothing, done a little sewing. That would be serving them, yes. Or she could have gone and told the town that she'd been healed. And it's why all the rest of the people showed up. We never stop and think about how the next part of that story happened. We go from one healing to suddenly a bunch of people looking to be healed. How did they know? And telling the story of Jesus is serving someone. Because the people we tell, the people we share that love with, the people that we share the safety and openness and welcome of our church with others, we think we're serving them. Guess what happens when they become a part of our community? Our spiritual needs get met and served too. We were created to be in community. We were created to be together to worship. We were created to reach out in prayer to God as a community of faith as well as individually. We were created to challenge each other, to learn together, and we are created to serve each other and those that God calls into our midst. And when we serve others, it comes back to us tenfold. Tenfold. I promise you. Trying to serve others. Listening to their needs, like we talked about with the children. And meeting them in the name of Christ will change your heart if you let them respond. God created you to make a difference in the lives of those that God puts in front of you. If you're willing, they'll make a difference in yours too. May God make it so.
Amen.
Amen.